And that's the thing, is the peer review process is fantastically important. In fact, the peer review process is what allowed us to figure out that these documents are not valid documents. That the process itself, it's a self-correcting system. That's why I say yay science. Is part of scientific advancement in seeking truth is being able to take parts and theories of what you thought were true before and cast them out into the ether as nothingness. They're done so. We don't need them anymore. We don't need to waste time on them anymore. They're not the truth. And so the peer review process is great at doing this. It basically, from going through here, we had people that looked at it, found out the reviews were false, and got them out of there. Now they have to go back to the drawing board with anything that those peer-reviewed journals had said. They need to cast out anything that they've put, any type of theories they've based or wrote on top of those theories have to be rescinded. And that is something that's powerful if you're trying to seek truth. It's something that's powerful if you're trying to seek logical conclusions. It's something you need if you're trying to seek logical conclusions. And that's why I think science is a proper form of thinking. It's a great way of thinking because it does get rid of the bad ideas. When there's no evidence and it's been peer-reviewed, it's gone to the dustbin of history and we'll move forward. And that's something that I think all forms of thinking need.
I'm going to throw this out here. He commented and he said this. He said, the only difference I see between religious faith and scientific faith is the willingness to admit to being wrong and revise opinions based on evidence. This is why I've adjusted my religious thinking to be more scientific, willing to reassess the details of what I believe based on what I've learned and experienced. Science will always have some basis in assumptions and unproven axioms, and there is an element of faith to science. It's just the difference of integrity.
There is no element of faith in science. Nothing in science is based on faith. Everything that's on there is based on the data, and if the data is wrong, they change it, and then they say they don't know. They don't postulate about what they don't know without the evidence. But more importantly, to that statement is where the biggest difference is. It's not just willingness to admit that you're wrong. It's the mechanism in which you use to find out that you're wrong. Religion has no such mechanism. It doesn't have a BS meter. It doesn't have a peer review meter that says what you're saying right now is incorrect. It's not true, and it needs to be thrown out. More importantly, what religion doesn't have is the BS meter that when you get to the point of knowing that it's bad evidence or knowing that it's not useful, you throw that out and you're done with it. You don't keep any portion of that anymore. It's gone. It doesn't work anymore. It's not true. And it's just the fundamental difference between faith and truth, and faith and evidence. They're not one and the same. They're not even related. It's like black and white. They are polar opposite of each other, and you can't have both. There's no way of having your cake and eating it too in this sense. A big part of your friend's statement was saying that he changes it based on his own experiences. That means nothing in science. It means absolute jack nothing. Your personal experience doesn't mean anything. What means something is having that experience, being able to predict that experience and predict it over and over again in the same controlled settings repetitively. And if it can't do that, it's not science. It's not science. It's postulating, theorizing, but it doesn't become a theory until there's the evidence for it. And that's why there's a fundamental divide between religion and science. More importantly, on the lack of the mechanism that detects what is correct and what is incorrect within itself. It doesn't have such a thing. And the lack of knowing when to stop wasting your time on a bad theory. When it is done, and it needs a new one. We don't need to rehash the old bad one over and over again. If we had such a thing in religion, number one, I don't know if we would have religion anymore, but if we had such a thing in religion, we definitely wouldn't have the great divide or the question of what is Christianity, because it has multiple definitions. It just couldn't happen. More importantly, with a religious person, if they say, I have a scientific mind, if they take individual account into favor, they do not. The reason is because science is predictable. It's a big P word. The most important thing about science is it's predictable. What we know now can be repeated over and over again. And that's how we know it's true. I always take the story of the person who claims they can hold their breath underwater. I love this analogy. The person of faith, if I came to you and I said, I can hold my breath for 35 minutes underwater, Jeremiah, a person of faith would say, face value, I believe it. I believe it to be true. And they would say, your individual account that you've told me this one time that you can do this is verification that you do indeed have the ability to hold your breath for 35 minutes underwater. The scientific mind looks at that and says, absolutely not. Let's find the nearest body of water, and I want to see you hold your breath for 35 minutes. Because I want predictable, repetitive evidence. And that example is a great analogy of explaining just the massive difference in assumption of individual claim and why we in our normal discourse know it's true to use the scientific way of thinking, and that the religious way of thinking falls short in predictability and evidence.